Hello, and welcome back to Almost Cult Classics, the podcast for another Sidetracks episode. My name is Joe Ramoni, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host Ryan Lancello, and we're going to be looking back at some of our episodes from 2020, revisiting some of those movies, picking our favorites, ones we didn't like. But before we get to that, I'm going to start this Sidetracks episode like we're going to start all of them, and ask Ryan, what have you been watching recently?
I've been really behind on watching stuff. I just distractions, this or that. But one movie I want to point out is Extreme Prejudice. Walter Hill directed it. The great Walter Hill, who's done The Warriors, Southern Comfort, 48 Hours, The Getaway. He's just awesome. But it's kind of an updated Wild Bunch. Have you ever seen Wild Bunch?
I have.
It's an amazing movie. It's one of the best Westerns you'll ever see. And it's kind of an updated version of that. It's got Nick Nolte, Powers Booth, Clancy Brown, Rip Torn, William Forsythe. It's got all these great actors. It's an awesome story. It's just one that really sticks out for me. We talked about it in the Quick Change episode, which you guys will hear.
Yeah, you'll hear
But
soon.
Let It Ride. With Richard Dreyfuss. I really liked it. It was like a gambling movie where the guy just keeps winning. It's so cool. Really a lot of fun. Yeah, it's kind of what I've been watching. Oh, I actually have to say this because I read the book. Shane. You ever see Shane?
High school.
Have you really?
It was a high school reading assignment,
Yeah.
and then the teacher put the movie on, but I wasn't seriously paying attention. That was the last time I saw it.
Sure. So Shane the book is maybe less than 120 pages.
Yeah, it's short.
I've never read a book that short that told such a full story. It's an excellent book. I cannot recommend the book enough. Not only that, I can't recommend the movie enough in this sense. It's impeccably shot. There are some shots in Shane that are impossible almost. I do not know how they did them.
For the time or just in general?
In general. Go watch Shane.
Yeah. I recently watched a Western that was really interesting, a silent, called The Roundup, which was Fatty Arbuckle's first ever, I don't even have a starring role. He's just in it. It's his first movie he appeared in. I feel like they kind of wrote this Western drama and then signed Arbuckle and were like, oh, we're going to just throw him in as a comedic relief, which is kind of what it is. But it had not been seen for 95 years. It had been lost for a long time.
What'd you watch it on?
Cinemuseum. They're a great company. They put out a Blu-ray of it.
Oh,
and
nice.
They're actually working on restoring all of Arbuckle's feature films. I did a video on Hats Off on Roscoe Arbuckle's career.
Which I will compel everyone to go watch. It's really well done, Joe.
Well, thank you.
He deserves another look.
He deserves way more looks than he gets. And basically what happened was when the scandal broke, which he was later exonerated and proven innocent by, overwhelming evidence
Just
in his
like
favor.
OJ.
Yeah, exactly.
Two innocent men.
And
for the record, I don't think Fatty Arbuckle killed that woman.
Well, and what happened was it was encouraged for theater owners to destroy prints of his movies. And so for a long time, the prints of his movies that did survive were not getting released because people didn't think there was a market for them. And now, coming into where film is being appreciated in a different light, they're starting to preserve some of these movies. So Cinemuseum, they're a great company. They're working on restoring an anthology set of all his films. The first time some of them have been seen in close to 100 years. So it's going to be really cool to see some of these movies.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so support them, buy their work. They put out this film, The Roundup, you can buy on their website, and support their work because it's great. I do want to talk about another video that I was working on last time we did a Sidetracks, or not even a Sidetracks, but I pitched to our audience that some of them might have deleted footage from films that we grew up watching that's presumed lost. And sure enough, last week we were able to find a missing, originally it was about 18-minute segment from Uncle Buck that someone had. And from there, because I knew if I put that 18 minutes out, it would not be received well because it was just a filmed conversation.
Sure.
It wasn't refined. It wasn't edited.
Well, like you say, it wasn't.
It's
raw footage.
What I told you earlier makes a lot of sense. Like looking at it and compared to the 80s movies, you would think it's not very good. But when you put it up against the standard comedy film today, where it's just people talking and improvising and shouting over each other.
It's almost the same.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same shit.
And it's really cool to find. I ended up cutting it down to about 10 minutes and putting it out on the Hats Off channel, which for me was, I can't tell you how surreal that was to edit footage of John Candy from a raw John Hughes file. Like,
quite frankly, I mean, where else has anyone seen that footage since you put it out?
As far as I know, the only footage of it that had gotten out was there was an actor in the scene who was given a tape of it by John Hughes. Aside from that, it was it. I mean, there no one else had seen that, and there's some great character actors in it. Mike Haggerty is in it.
Yeah,
great character actor, and it's just like, I put the footage out there, and everyone was like, I could see why it got deleted, and my argument was, well, no, it's not about that. It's about here's 10 minutes of John Candy the world has never seen before. So.
Well, not only that, I mean, it's me and you are big film preservation guys. So it's like, let's preserve as much. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's just preservation.
Well, and the weird thing about it, too, is that, you and I grew up in the generation where, like, the film historians and preservationists were preserving these movies from the 30s and 20s, and no one's really looking at these movies from the 80s and 90s except us who grew up with them.
All right.
And I think you're going to find a new wave of film history that comes out of preserving these 80s movies.
You should hope so.
I hope so, too. But yeah, that's what I've been watching recently. When you hear our episode on Quick Change, we talked a little bit more about other movies we've been watching recently that pertain to Quick Change. You mentioned, what was the film? Let It Ride.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about The Public Eye, which ties to Quick Change. Great movie, which you'll hear more about. I want to go through. We did 9 episodes in 2020, and I want to just look through those movies real quick, give any second thoughts we had about them. Obviously, we didn't do a full year. We started, I think, over the summer. Was that?
I think so. Yes, I believe so. It was very hot in your old place.
Yes, no air conditioning, no central AC there. We started with Super Mario Brothers, which was a movie that I grew up liking, and I kind of always thought we should launch the podcast with.
It was a good pick.
Yeah. That being said, watching it for the first time since childhood did not hold up as well as I hoped it would. I don't know if I'll see it again, but it's an interesting movie.
I mean, like I said in the episode, I was always under the impression that it was an enormous piece of shit. It wasn't. That said,
There you go.
I have no interest to watch it.
If there's
again.
ever silver lining, it's that it's not a piece of shit.
No, it's fine. It's serviceable.
It's a mediocre action adventure film.
It's just not as bad as it was always made out to be. Everyone likes to blow shit up, and it's okay. I'm not interested in that type of movie, so I won't watch it again. But it didn't I wasn't offended watching it. You know what I mean? Like,
number 2 was Popeye, which was another film that I grew up loving. Hadn't seen the bit, but I still enjoy it. It's a fun movie. Got me to watch some more Altman flicks, so that was good.
I will probably not watch Popeye again if I don't have to. It was okay, whatever. But Altman's great. I really, especially to you, Joe, I want to recommend The Player.
Okay.
With Tim Robbins. It's phenomenal.
Check it out.
It's so good. It's a great, there's always movies about movies. This is one of the best. I was actually I love Altman. I think he's a fantastic. He's a master, but The Player is like him at his peak. It's a fucking great movie.
Yeah, I think this episode was like the first time you really got to dive into a filmmaker's history and watch some of their stuff, which kind of became the way we did things.
And not only that, I was sleeping on Altman for a long time, so I overloaded on him. So I was seeing all his great movies compared to Popeye, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? Because the guy made fucking McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which I was obviously effusive in that episode.
In that episode, you really went on about it.
It's a phenomenal movie. It's one of the best you'll ever see, especially when it comes to Westerns.
Number 3 was Nothing But Trouble, which for me was one of the pleasant surprises with this podcast. Was a movie, again, had seen years ago, but going into it, seeing how much hate it had gotten in recent years and then getting to see that it's not nearly that bad, and it's kind of fun. I don't know. I enjoyed it.
It's another one I don't understand the hate for. I think people have a problem with grotesquerie, or however you want to,
And that's certainly what some of the reviews said.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I never understand that when people review it. It's like, oh, it's so ugly. It's like, that's the point. Your sensibilities don't factor into the filmmaker's, end game here. You're the viewer.
In my Chevy Chase show video, which was an idea you gave me to do
I
a
did,
video on
and it's
that.
one of my you nailed that one, man.
And in that video, I did a throwaway joke where I said, Chevy Chase made some bad choices in the 90s, and I showed a clip from Nothing But Trouble. And I said, well, I'll come back to this another time. The amount of, I don't want to say hate, but the amount of comments I get on that video of people who say, you don't understand film if you don't understand Nothing But Trouble. So it's like, there's hatred on both sides. Like, there's hatred if you dislike it, there's hatred if you like it. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's worth the hate. I think Dan Aykroyd was actually a really inventive, fun director to work with.
I would have loved to see more movies
and
directed by him.
We will. Who knows?
I think I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a fool's hope. I think he should get another shot at something. I would love to see it. But it's one of those weird things, man. It's like you hear stories about Scorsese can't get funding. Spielberg has trouble getting funding sometimes.
Unless you go to like these new streaming sites, like it's hard for them to get.
Or you're so... The idea is it's hard to get people to spend money on an original idea.
I agree, yeah.
And that's going to be the problem. And that's why you're going to see Ready Player One by fucking Spielberg, which is just...
Ready Player 2 is in development.
Great, cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's... Again, we're in a weird time right now for the future of movie theaters, but it seems like...
Very strange time in the film industry.
Number 4 was a movie that you definitely recommended, was The Lady Killers, which was a movie... You take the lead on this because it's a movie that you obviously like quite a bit.
I reviled from what I remember. People hated it. And it's so funny because I don't like Tom Hanks, and I think he is hysterically funny in this movie. I think it's one of his top 3 best performances, possibly.
Really good.
And it's just funny. It's just a silly, goofy movie. This is one of those weird things where it's like I like the original, but I don't know if I like the remake more because I'm an American. And I can I get the beats more. You know what I mean?
They're very different movies.
It's a very British film, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But, when we did that, I watched all those Alec Guinness Ealing.
That's right.
They're really good.
Yeah.
Lady Killers especially. It's a classic. And he is obviously excellent in it. But I want to reiterate, it was Man in the White Suit, Lavender Hill Mob, and Kind Hearts and Coronets.
Oh, yeah.
And all 4 of them. I cannot recommend those movies enough. They hold up. They're really good. Go watch them.
Yeah, it's fun. Like now as I'm hearing, as we're going through these episodes, I'm remembering like, you know what? We started to develop like, let's look more about movies that inspired this. Like, I think when we started this podcast, we were more concerned about the movies themselves.
Right.
As we go on, we started to talk about the world around them, which has kind of become what we do. And
well, it was one of the nice things about watching Super Mario Brothers is Bob Hoskins is great, and I got to see Mona Lisa. I kind of wasn't on my radar, and I started looking into his filmography, and I was like, wow, and like I love that movie, I really do, and that's the thing I think we want to do with this is it's not so much the movie at hand we're talking about, it's everything around it.
Yeah,
obviously we're going to talk about the movie, but it's a web.
Yeah, I tended when we have these discussions and I lead them, I tend to kind of tone it back a little bit in terms of how far we get off topic. Mm-hmm. With the new episode that will drop soon on Quick Change, I kind of let that really go a little bit further. We kind of it's our longest episode.
Yep.
And I enjoyed it. I think, we should do that more. And hopefully the listeners like it too. But
Please let us know.
I'm sure they will.
I love the feedback. I can't say this enough, positive or negative. I love feedback.
Number 5 was Dick Tracy, which was a movie I think you and I both really hadn't seen in a very long time.
I maybe saw it once as a kid. Maybe.
I enjoyed it a lot. I'm so glad we got to do it for the show. It's, again, you got to look at Warren Beatty's filmography, and it was just a fun movie.
I could not recommend Reds enough.
You really liked Reds?
I think it's a masterpiece. I don't know. It's long, and it's a topic people may not be interested in, which is foolish, especially with what's going on right now. It's a lot of parallels.
Yeah,
I'll say that. I would, if you want to kind of take a look at what's going on right now, a lot of parallels in Reds. It's masterfully done. It's really good, and Dick Tracy's good too.
Would you rewatch Dick Tracy?
Yeah, I would watch Dick Tracy. There's a lot of good stuff in it, especially Pacino. He's so funny in it. It's so good, especially that dance scene.
It's great.
It's so good.
I'm hoping that this gets kind of like, I know there's a Blu-ray out somewhere. I'm hoping it gets like a remastered edition somewhere. I would love to see some behind the scenes stuff on Dick Tracy. That for me would be the only time I'd rewatch it.
And the weird thing with Dick Tracy is it's almost kind of the end of that auteur era in a weird way. It gets revived a little bit. Tarantino kind of brings it back in 94, which is actually, God, when did Dick Tracy came out?
I think it's 90 or 91.
Yes, I believe it was 91.
Okay.
And it was kind of the end of that big star that can kind of get things done, almost.
Yeah, well, it's weird, too. It was like the big star getting things done, also trying to go in the direction of the big tentpole comic movie. So it was a weird...
Yeah, in a weird way. It was almost kind of one of the first comic book movies.
Yeah. Number 6, Death to Smoochie, which I will not see again.
Look, it's a middling film. It's not the greatest film of all time, but... we got to watch a lot of DeVito directed films.
That's right.
And once again, here's a guy I would like to see him direct again.
Yeah.
I think he's a good director.
And I can see why people like this movie. I said that in the episode. It was just, for me, it was a very grating watch. And, I mean, who knows? Like, I never shut the door on a film completely ever. But it's like, it's going to take me... it would take a lot for me to like get in the mood to sit down and watch this movie again.
But that's a wise way to look at things. Never shut the door, because there's been movies I've been like, I fucking hate this piece of shit, and then I catch it on TV and I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? This movie's great.
You know what?
Big Lebowski's always the one I come back to.
Oh yeah, that's
the first time I saw it. I'm like, this sucks, and then I watched it again and I'm like, well, I'm an idiot.
Yeah. I believe it or not, I did that with Midnight Run. I saw Midnight Run the first time
baffling.
As like a young kid, and it just didn't click for me. And then I went back and watched it. Like,
yeah, that's you nailed on something here. So we're people. We've all seen movies we probably shouldn't have seen when we were kids. Not in the sense that they were dirty or anything, but you just kind of don't get it. It goes over your head as a kid. You see these movies later; they're much, much better.
Yeah, so, I mean, and the reverse is true. Like, sometimes there'll be movies you loved as a kid, and you'll go watch it today and be like, this is awful.
To wit, Goonies.
Oh, yeah, for me, Goonies was a... Did I say that in the last Sidetracks?
I think so. You said it kind of slid off your top 10.
Yeah, it was on my top 5 for the longest time, and it's still a commendable film that I enjoy that gives me memories of being a kid, but it's like, this isn't a movie for me anymore, and it kind of... Yeah, your opinion kind of evolves on certain films.
I never liked Goonies.
I know you didn't ever like it. You've never also seen Goonies. I will reiterate that.
Full all the way, yes. That's correct.
Okay, so hey... Maybe we'll come back to
maybe I actually do like it.
Number 7 is a movie that I loved going into it, loved coming out, which was Matinee.
It's a good film.
I think that for me, I can safely say, of the movies we've talked about, has been the one I love the most.
Yeah.
It's a movie that I didn't really need to revisit for the podcast. I've seen it so many times, so my opinion didn't change at all. It was just fun to talk about.
It's a movie lover's film for sure.
Yeah,
it's very much a love letter to that old. Obviously William Castle inspired.
B-movie-esque.
Sure. A lot of fun. Yeah. I love it. It's a good film.
Number 8, 1941. This is a movie, again, not going to shut the door on it completely. I don't think I'll watch it again anytime soon, intentionally.
Out of what we did, this was probably the one I'd revisit quick. What the fuck is the word I'm looking for here? The most. Thank you. Well, not only that, because I got to watch Sugarland Express and Duel, his first 2 movies, which I don't understand why these two are not more. Duel had its due.
Well, also
but Sugarland Express, I really liked that movie.
You really do need to because if you go back to that episode, you and I watched 2 different cuts of the movie.
Yeah,
mine was like half an hour longer.
True.
So you should check out that longer cut. If anything, maybe I should check out the condensed version. It might change my opinion of it. And lastly, number 9 is Cabin Boy, which was a movie I had never seen. You had never seen either. I came out really liking it. It's a very different movie. And I'm so glad we got to say it. I would have never watched it had it not been for this podcast, probably. And it was just a really interesting, quirky little movie that is not worth the hate it's gotten.
Oh my God, not even close. Not only that, it's so funny how originality gets punished sometimes, and I think that's what turns my stomach.
Yeah,
and not only that, it drums people out of the industry, and they don't get another chance. So to jump back, nothing but trouble. He went for an original idea. And he hasn't done a movie since. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, that sucks, dude.
It's funny. Coming back to that real quick. For Christmas, one of my gifts was the press kit for Uncle Buck, an original press kit. And
wow.
In the press kits, like they give you what the actors are working on, and like so for the interviewers can kind of just go off that.
Sure.
And for John Candy's, it says, and next he'll be filming Vulcanvania. So it's. I made the case in that episode. I think the title hurts it. I think Vulcanvania is a better title. I don't think Nothing But Trouble's a good title.
Nothing But Trouble's a shit title. I don't know if Vulcanvania would have been better. It's certainly more
original.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was it. 9 episodes. What was the overall, if you had to pick one of the favorite movies you watched?
I'm such a, I hate fanboys, and I rail against you all the time for being the king of the fanboys, but
I am indeed.
I'm such a Coen fanboy, man. I love them so much.
So you think Lady Killers would be the one you would revisit? If you had to pick one to revisit?
No, because there's not much meat on the bone there.
Okay.
It's a bit of a throwaway for them, honestly, if I'm being frank.
Yeah.
If I had to revisit one, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think Tracy's got a lot of going for it.
That's a good one. That's a good pick.
It's got a lot going for it, and I think it transcends. It gets beyond its. And this is what the initial Marvel movies did. They got beyond their comic book trappings almost. They got beyond it, and then they just wrote every fucking Marvel movie's the same thing. Yeah. That's why I stopped watching them. I'd rather read the comic books, honestly. I'm not even joking.
Well,
it's more value. Read. I think people need to start reading more. Go read old books. Go watch old movies.
He said on a podcast about film. I'm
saying watch old movies.
I will definitely revisit Nothing But Trouble again soon. I think I'm going to do something about the behind the scenes on that if I can get to it. That for me was just really. I avoided watching that movie for so long because of the hate it got, and I had seen it many times before. But I will definitely revisit it again because I thought it was not nearly as bad as I remember it being, and it was fun.
It's good.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I don't think it's a bad movie.
So, what's for you was the most pleasant surprise of the movies we watched?
Well, quite frankly, these movies weren't that bad.
I know, but which one did you expect would be much worse than it was?
Would probably be Nothing But Trouble because it was just so reviled when you look at it. And this is why I always say, look, take critics with a grain of salt. I read critics. I like reading about movies. So if anything, I like reading about movies more than I like watching them, which is very whatever. I'm a weirdo, but it's good. Nothing But Trouble deserves none of the hate.
Yeah.
I think it's so unfairly maligned. It's not the greatest movie of all time, but it's something different. And I think people get scared with that. I don't know.
That's my exact feelings on Cabin Boy. I mean, because it was so out there and so different and so weird that that made me like it. And that for me was definitely a movie that I was pleasantly surprised with how just kind of fun and wacky it was. I think I will revisit that soon just to show other people.
Yeah,
that'll be a fun movie to.
It's a fun movie to watch if you guys just sitting around because you don't have to pay attention.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a fun movie,
little party movie or something.
It's not like it's like a sketch movie, but it allows you to kind of breathe a little bit where you can get your belly laughs. You can just kind of enjoy it too because it's just a silly, surreal movie. Sure. I think the surrealness threw people off. Yeah. And I think that's where me and you really liked it.
I think so.
Especially me. I love...
Yeah, especially, we've seen a lot of movies, so the fact that it was so surreal and different, I think,
And not only
volumes.
that, it was a throwback, too, where it had that old fucking Jason and the Argonauts vibe almost, you know what I mean? Like Harryhausen type shit.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Lastly, since you did so much research for these episodes, watching other directors' filmography and films that tied into these episodes, what for you was the best film you watched in relation to one of these episodes? And you constantly threw them out there in these episodes, but if you had to go through and find one that you would really think is underappreciated and needs more attention.
I'm looking at a abbreviated list here, but I'd probably say Sugarland Express.
There we go. I mean, that's a Spielberg film, and
it's really the thing is the thing I like about Sugarland Express is you have your A story with the two Bonnie and Clyde-esque type characters on their getaway, running from the cops, but you have so many B, C, D, E, F stories where you have the sheriff pursuing them who's sympathetic. You have the hostage cop who becomes sympathetic to him. You have other outside influence. Like Sugarland Express is really cool because there's a lot of things going on beyond the A story.
Sure.
And that I really appreciated. And I thought Spielberg was very deft in weaving them all together. And not only that, he still has something to prove. So he's trying harder than maybe he will on later stuff. And I don't want to shit on Spielberg too much. His more modern choices I'm not the biggest fan of. As I already said, Ready Player One, I could care less about. Mm-hmm. But he'll still, make a Lincoln, which I hear is a very boring film, but he'll do...
Yeah, he does different things.
But he really was hungry earlier, and...
He was willing to show it.
And I'm telling you, man, there's... Not only that, I just want to single out one thing in Sugarland Express. There's a scene where, it's a kind of a chase movie where they're moving in a car, and like a news crew pulls up alongside them. They got like a guy with a camera on the roof of the van and stuff. There's a stunt in that movie where the van, everyone shoots off the top of the van. I don't know how the stuntman didn't die.
Wow.
Like, it's incredible. And it's a beautifully shot movie. Sugarland Express, I'd really recommend. And in regards to Altman, you especially, Joe, The Player.
I would check it out. Yeah.
You'll really like that. It's one of the best movies about movies I've ever seen. It's so well done. Tim Robbins is fantastic in it. Everyone else in that movie is fantastic in it. I mean, you got Fred Ward, Vincent D'Onofrio. They're all so good.
Well, so in this podcast, you usually would do that. You would dive into movies surrounding these episodes. I wouldn't. Ironically enough, I did it for the first 2021 episode, which was Quick Change. And you'll hear me talk about that a little on that episode.
What'd you get into? I forgot.
The Public Eye.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching
Public
that.
Eye's great. But as we come to the end of the Sidetracks, looking back at 2020, we want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing for this year, which is we've launched a separate Patreon for this podcast, which before I was tying it into the Hats Off Patreon. So we just kind of really want to buckle down on doing exclusive content for our listeners. And a big part of that's going to be what we put out on Patreon.
Look, guys, the Almost Cult Classic podcast is going to be free. We're continuing that. That's going to be free for everyone. But we're going to, every time we do these, me and Joe keep talking. And that's what we're going to put on Patreon. It's going to be an expansion of that and everything else. Your questions, send in your fucking emails, your request, your hate mail towards me. It's great. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're going to keep going. There's also a few... bonus episodes we did back over the summer that I put on Patreon. I'm going to re-release those on this new Patreon. It's going to be other stuff. We're going to do some commentaries. We're going to try to do some interviews with people involved in this movie. We're going to try to take listener calls on an episode.
I would love to do a call-in show. I don't know if I don't know if we're there yet in regards to...
We'll figure it out. I think you can plug a phone into this soundboard.
Yeah, but you'd have to do essentially a live show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And we want to do stuff like that. Even like maybe even video content. Like, if we're not opposed to it, we just we really want to devote this new Patreon to just this podcast and content that Ryan and I come up with. So we're really hoping to get some support on there. It's going to be very simple at patreon.com/almostcultclassics. We're asking for $5 right now. That's going to get you pretty much everything we have to offer.
Guys, it's $5.
And we're going to keep adding tiers and content as time goes on.
Sure. I mean, dude, I'm making a big push this year.
Yeah.
We obviously, you can kind of tell, we almost seem to, unfortunately, be like a month between episodes. It's going to be a week.
Yeah, we're gonna start.
We're gonna start pumping
changing
stuff
our
out.
pace. Also starting a podcast during a pandemic was, not the easiest thing to do. But we are committed to the future, and Patreon's going to be a big part of that. So please consider supporting us there. And
don't consider it; just do it.
There you go.
Guys, as always, thanks for listening. I love our listeners; they're the best fucking people.
You are. You're tremendous people. You're the best people.
You're the best people. We get the best people.
We have the best listeners.
We have the best listeners.
The best space. And we will see you next time.
Can I do my Obama?
No.
Oh, come on.